Hello and welcome to another Pye and Smith production. Here we will be talking about the World Championships of Darts Quarter 2. We'll be doing 4 videos like this. So we've already done Quarter 1. The links will be below to all quarters. And yeah, the World Championship Darts is split into 4 quarters with 16 players or 16 games in each, if you like. So yeah, we're just going through them. I'll pass you over to Matt Pieman Hill.
Cheers, Adam. Yeah, so we'll dive straight in. Obviously, I'm taking the round 1 ties, and then Adam's talking to you a little bit about what seed the winner of that game will face and what their general prospects are for the tournament. So, diving back in, the first game we come to in Quarter 2 is Jason Lowe versus Dimitri Gobinov. Jason Lowe, a bit of a dark horse that I have taken a liking to in the past. He's not your classic flashy, exciting package. He's 48. He's English. He's pretty average looking. He's a steady thrower. He's been around for years without really doing anything. But don't let that fool you. He's quite a handy player. He's lost a last leg decider to MVG in the UK Open. He's had a couple of good runs in that tournament. He's earned his card this year through Q School and done okay. I do like Jason Lowe. I thought he might have a little bit of a run in the Players' Championships, but he was edged out by Rob Cross in round 1. But I do quite like him. He's playing Dimitri Gobinov here, the Russian. He only picked up a dart for the first time in 2015. He entered the tournament with 4 other players and finished 3rd. So he's done remarkably well to come on and get to this stage. But I'm sceptical about the route he's got into this tournament, the Eurasian qualifier. I know they're trying to grow the game, but I'm not sure he's quite up to scratch here. Quite happy to take Lowe 3-0 odds against 11 to 10. I think just Lowe made light work of Gobinov, unless I've badly underestimated him.
Yeah, and Michael Smith, the number 4 seed, awaits the winner of that one in the second round. Yeah, a lot's been said about Michael Smith, obviously, but yeah, the 2019 finalist, and obviously lost on that occasion, and has been on the losing end of a bunch of big finals in big tournaments. So, he's got that bridge to overcome, if you like, and get his first major on the board. But he's ranked number 4 for a reason. He's a good player. So. But as we said on our first video a couple of weeks ago, I think Smith has turned a corner, to be honest. He won his first PDC ranking in over 2 years, first PDC ranking event, the Winter Series, day 1, wasn't on TV. And then he came back on day 2 the following day and won that again. So he's now won 2 ranking events this year. I think that was a massive confidence booster, and I personally think he's looked a different player since. I know that's an easy assumption to make, but at the Grand Slam, I thought he looked more confident, definitely more confident on his doubles. Just carried himself differently, to be honest. He won all 3 games in the group stage of the Grand Slam. I think there was only 2 or 3 players did that. He held his bottle to see off Rob Croft in the first knockout round, and then he came up short against De Souza, the eventual winner, in the quarterfinal. Next time, a couple of weeks later, he faced De Souza again in a tournament on TV, and he reversed that result. So yeah, I just think he's more confident and more assured on the doubles. I'm not saying I would back him, because this is a tricky looking draw that we'll come on to, but he is a different player to previous years, in my opinion. Last year he was only about 20 to 1 to win the Worlds. He's 16 to 1 this time round. So going on that he's a better player this year, maybe the 16 to 1's too big.
Yeah, on Michael Smith, I couldn't have agreed with anyone who's backed him in previous years. He's looked like he's had a real problem closing big games out. It looks like his doubles can desert him at big moments. When he's good, he's very, very good. But when he wasn't consistent enough to be back for big events. I couldn't really put anyone off him this year. I think he's about the right price, 16 to 1. His game's in good nick. He seems to have a good mental attitude these days. There's some signs that he's maybe getting ready for that first big massive TV title. Who knows, it could be this one, but like you said, tough old draw for him, I think.
There is some big names in this section of the draw for Smith, but they've all got more question marks over him than Smith has. We'll come on to that, but like I say, there's some big names. There's even 2 previous winners of the World Championships in this section, but they have got questions to ask, which we'll come on to.
And I am more worried about Michael Smith in the early rounds than the later rounds. I think if he gets going in this tournament and he can get to that semi-final, I don't think he would fear Van Gerwen in the semi-final. If he was in and playing well, I think he's in a good headspace to take on someone like Van Gerwen. It's these early rounds that I worry about him. But anyway, Moving on. The next first round game in this quarter is Steve Lennon against Daniel Larson. Lennon, the Irishman, you may know him from he was in the final of the World Cup of Darts when Ireland lost to Scotland in 2019. Him and Willie O'Connor enjoyed a fantastic run in that tournament. He's a Players' Championship semi-finalist, and he has a lot of TV experience, actually, for someone of his age, and I do still think he's on an upward curve. He's had 3 previous Ali Pali appearances. He has made the second round in 2019, so he knows what it's like up on the big stage. All of his losses have been 3-2 in sets, so he's not one to get rolled over. He plays Daniel Larson, the experienced Swede, who's one of these who's been around since darts began and is still lurking around. He's a very unspectacular but solid player, you know. I'm not sure he's quite cut out for the World Championships in their current format, what they are today. He's not going to suddenly start averaging 100 and something. He'll average around 90. And if Lennon turns up, he'll beat him. If he doesn't, he'll get beat, you know. But I would get with Lennon. And you could get him at minus 1.5. So to win 3-0 or 3-1 at odds against 11-10, I think that's very fair.
Yeah, and then Steve Lennon will potentially go on to face Devin Peterson in the second round. Devin Peterson's 33-1. I think that's the most wrong price of the whole tournament. I think that's way too short, to be honest. He has undoubtedly had the best season of his career. He's been in around the professional game 10 or 11 years, Peterson. Popular with the fans. Often turns up at the Worlds through the African qualifying route. He's got a great entrance, gets the crowd going, does a bit of dancing. But I still think he's overhyped, and I think the 33s is too short. He has made big improvements this year. Well documented, been working with Wayne Mardle in some sort of coaching type capacity. He's now one of the best 180 hitters in the sport at the moment, to be honest. He could quite possibly play Michael Smith or Gary Anderson in rounds 3 or 4. And he'll be an outsider against them 2 alone. Never mind getting further into the tournament. So Devin Peterson's potential games 2 and 3 is both going to be odds against. So I don't see why he's 33-1. I really, really don't. I think he should be. I don't know why he's shorter than the likes of Hetter, Croft, Whitlock. We'll come on to them. They're all around the 66-1 mark, and that's where I think Peterson should be.
I wouldn't argue too strongly against what you say about Devin Peterson there, actually. I think you're probably right. His price is a little bit too short. He's a bit of a data analyst dream, Devin Peterson. He had a massive spike in his form earlier in the year, strung a couple of months together where he was hitting over 100 average regularly, reaching finals of events, had a lot of success. And, I think duly people have got on board the Peterson train. But let's not forget, although he is enjoying like a bit of a renaissance, he has been to the latter stages of World Championships before. He's never managed to get to a semi, beyond that into the semi-finals. He's always had these runs that have fallen short. Yes, he might be in a better place now, but the standard of darts is higher as well. And I would worry about him, even if he did manage to get to a quarter semi-final, whether he would have the mentality to get through into that final. Not someone I would be with, but I do accept that he's had a very good year, and I understand where his supporters come from. But I agree with you, not one for me. The next round 1 match in this quarter is Madaz Rasma against Toru Suzuki. As Adam will know, Madaz Rasma is someone I'm a fan of. He's one of the outsiders. I like to keep an eye on the Latvian. He's an ex-BDO. He's come over, hasn't ripped things apart like a lot of these guys, but he's definitely on the improve, and he's still young enough at 32 to get himself up into this. I see him getting into the top 32 at some stage, Rasma. I think he's capable of that. He's a Players' Championship finalist where he got thumped off Van Gerwen, but that can happen. Finalist in the Autumn Series as well. He threw for the match last year on his Ali Pali debut against Harry Ward. The nerves seemed to get the better of him. I think he'll be stood in much better stead for that experience. He's taking on Toru Suzuki, not to be confused with Miro Suzuki, the woman who is the number 1 ranked ladies player and almost beat Gerwin Price in the Grand Slam of Darts. She didn't qualify, unfortunately. Miro Suzuki, Toru, don't know a lot about this guy. He's come through the Asian qualifiers. He is a playing partner of Seigo Asada, so we can presume that he plays to a reasonable standard, but he doesn't seem to have made the breakthrough, really. Prime opportunity for Rasma to get his first win at the Worlds and set up an intriguing clash with Gary Anderson. Yeah,
I mean, going back to the price, Gary Anderson is 33-1, best price. That's the same best price as Devin Peterson. Gary Anderson is a 2-time back-to-back world champion. I mean, I just can't get my head around it. But Gary comes into this as the 13th seed, which is pretty low for him, obviously being the back-to-back world champion as he was in 15-16. That's mainly due to him picking and choosing which non-TV events he plays, which isn't many throughout the season. It's less than most. And then having seemingly recovered from a long-term back injury that was plaguing him for a couple of years in 2018, 2019, he's now been hit by a leg injury. I mean, on the last couple of events we've seen him on TV, he has been visibly hobbling around the stage. Managed to win a couple of games, crazily enough. And then today, on Tuesday, the 8th of December, I don't know if you've seen, it's actually been announced that he's self-isolating, and this second round game that we're talking about has been slightly rescheduled to the next day so he can get over this self-isolation period. He has not got COVID, but apparently he's been in contact with someone who has. So he's been, you can count himself a bit unlucky with the injuries and health issues he has had, and this being one of them. This is going to sound harsh. I think Gary Anderson's X factor's gone at the very top level, and I've pretty much said that since Gerwyn Price bullied him in that infamous 2018 Grand Slam final. Gary Anderson should have reacted to that better. He let Gerwyn Price get away with bullying him, and I know Gerwyn Price was there was consequences after the event for Gerwyn Price, but at the end of the day, Gerwyn Price won the Grand Slam because Gary Anderson let him. I don't think,
and they've both gone on very different trajectories since that match, haven't they? It's a turning point for both of them.
Yeah, and I don't think it sounds harsh. I just don't think Gary Anderson cares as much as he did nowadays as what he did before. He's getting older, like I say, he's playing less events, and he may be unlucky with injuries, but he just looks fed up. I don't think he's got the real cutthroat mentality that you needed in this day and age with the standards. I think he's got a reasonable kind of draw. We'll come on to Mensorshulovich, who's been a little bit, who's been in and out this year, and he could beat Michael Smith in a potential fourth round tie. But yeah, Gary Anderson's 33-1 for a reason, and I wouldn't be backing him.
Yeah, if I had to compare Gary Anderson to someone, it would probably be everyone's favourite national hunt horse, Don Pauly. He's like a staying type. You would never rule him out. There's some ability there, but the distress signals are coming out from all over the place. I was very worried by the comments he made in a recent tournament in his post-match interview, where he had a bit of a meltdown saying that he didn't like the way that darts was going. Oh, I absolutely adored it, but from a performance perspective, very concerning. You made a point there that Gary Anderson seems to be not got his head in it like he once was. I think that's a perfect indicator of it, but I would never entirely rule him out of the Worlds. Like you say, he picks and chooses his events now. He'll be desperate to make an impact at this tournament, but I just can't see him stringing 6-7 wins together, to be honest. Not with his injuries, the form, and just the general adversity that he's had this year. Adding in this latest COVID carry-on, it's very hard to make a case for Gary Anderson.
I can see Gary Anderson playing this tournament and doing as well as he can do, whatever that may be, and then not seeing him in a few tournaments for a little while. He's done that previously. He's missed the Premier League previously on at least one occasion. I can see him taking a prolonged rest after this because his leg is injured quite badly.
And let's not forget, Gary Anderson's achieved it all in the game, hasn't he? He hasn't got anything to prove. World Cup winner, World Championship winner, several majors. He's done it all. He's been around years. Maybe he just feels like he doesn't have any more to give. Don't want to write him off too early. A big fan of Gary Anderson, but yeah, the distress signals are definitely there. Yep. Next first round game that we're going to cover is Mike Covenhoven versus Matthew Edgar. This will be a very popular game with a certain section of the darting community, Edgar TV, the Edgar Nation. Matt Edgar, probably more known for what he's done off the board than what he's actually done on it. Not to be nasty to Matt Edgar, but he hasn't achieved an awful lot in the floor events or anything really. But he's very popular. He runs a fantastic YouTube channel, which is very insightful into the world of darts. Will often film from events and talk about his experiences in the floor events. It's a real eye-opener for any darts fans, and he seems like a genuinely nice guy. Got in at the last minute through the qualifiers. Showed some good bottle to get there as well. He beat Josh Payne 7-2 in his final qualifier. Josh Payne been to the Worlds a couple of times. Good player, so fair play. But he has lost his two previous World Championship appearances against Darius Labanowskis. Was hoping for a third meeting of the pair, but it didn't quite come out that way. He's got a good draw against Covenhoven. he hasn't done a lot, the Dutchman, this year. It's quite hard to get enthusiastic about his prospects in this tournament. And I think if Edgar is going to get that first round victory, although I wouldn't want to be getting involved in the game, I would like to see him do it. And I think he's got a good chance.
Yeah, and the 20th seed is Mensorshulovich. For some reason, the fans seem to love this man, the gentle giant, or the gentle, whatever they call him, and he's got the walk-on song, and he's always smiling. But I can't stand watching his matches, to be honest, personally. He's so slow and methodical. He's got an action that even if you wanted to write on a piece of paper how not to throw darts, the words you wrote down wouldn't describe how bad Sulovich is. He's kicking his leg out, and he's got his old fingers like that as he brings his dart back. He just winds me up, to be honest. Nice fella. I'm sure I'd love to go for a pint with him. He'll drink me right under the table, but yeah, not for me. He's 125 to 1. He's had a very quiet year, to say the least. He's not been seen on the two most recent TV events due to a family bereavement, which is a shame for him, obviously. It's difficult to see him going deeper in this competition, particularly with this tough draw. Famously beaten by Fallon Sharrock last year. That was mainly down to the crowd, if you ask me. But yeah, he's 125 to 1. He's in a tricky part of the draw, and he's bang out of form.
Yeah, beaten by Fallon Sherritt last year and thumped by Dimitri Vandenberg 4-0 the year before, a match that he entered as a strong favourite. So not a great record for Mensah at the Ali Pali, and he's had a bad year. Definitely one of the seeds that you would be steering clear of, and I think reflected in his price very much so. Now, I said earlier that we might have had there's three games in this half of the draw that stand out to me. One we've discussed in the previous video, and this is the second one. Dirk van Duijvenbode versus Bradley Brooks. Now, if you'd said to anyone which qualifier are you going to be looking at in round one the most, a lot of people would say Dirk van Duijvenbode. He's had a fantastic year. Obviously, that run to the final in the Grand Prix really lit up on the TV stage. He's had some good performances since. He's banging form. Quite an enjoyable player to watch. Very aggressive, power scorer. A lot going for Dirk, but he's got a bit of a stinker of a draw here. Bradley Brooks, world youth champion. Not a lot known about him, but he has beat Joe Davis 6-5 in the final to win that world youth championship. Now, he only averaged in the 80s or maybe around 90. Don't let that fool you. This lad can play. He really can. He had to beat Damon Hetter to get his tour card in January. So that tells you a lot about the quality this lad possesses. Former world youth champions, you're looking at Luke Humphries, Dimitri Vandenberg. We know this is a good production line. To be honest, two players that if they had drawn anyone else, I'd have probably been getting with them both. I do expect Dirk. I think Dirk's a worthy favourite, but I'm not sure that Bradley Brooks is a 3-1 chance. I definitely see him making a tight game of this, and he's 13-10 to take 2 sets. Probably take that over the 3-1. But yeah, tough draw for Dirk. He's definitely in form, but I wouldn't rule out Bradley Brooks.
Well, if any walk-on song matches the player that walks to it, Dirk is the one. A lot of the walk-on songs now are chose, purposely, for the fans, but Dirk comes out very, very aggressive, Euro, dance, hardcore, and Dirk literally comes out punching like that. And that's kind of how he plays. And like
I think he'll enjoy the fans being in there, for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, came out of nowhere for the what was it? The match play, as you say, Grand Prix. Sorry, made the final day from absolutely nowhere. Played really quite well against Van Gerwen in the Players Championship finals a couple of weeks ago. Didn't quite make it in the end, but that's no knock on your record. And yeah, Bradley Brooks. It's worth saying that the World Youth Championship final was only a couple of weeks ago on TV on the big stage during the Players Championship finals on the final day. So good experience for Bradley Brooks. Yeah, good game. The winner of that one will take on Rob Croft, who's 50-1. Remarkably won this event on debut in 2018. I mean, I can hardly put into words how remarkable that is. He came from absolutely nowhere, Rob Croft. The momentum did build throughout the year, and darts fans certainly knew who he was going into the tournament. But to win it, to beat Taylor in the final, I mean, yeah, just superb. Unfortunately for Cross, he's not really produced that level of form since. But it is understandable, given he was thrust into the limelight. His life completely changed. He was in the Premier League, playing every week, travelling. So you can kind of understand why. He has won one major since, I think in 2019, but yeah, 2020's not been great for him. He got bashed in 3-0 in his only game at Ali Pali last year in the second round. His best showing this year was a quarterfinal in the UK Open, again where he got beat by MVG, got swept aside really there. So yeah, it looks like the odds would suggest he would play Big Dirk in the second round, and I won't be in a rush to put money on Croft for that. It was a real tough quarter, and I can't see him going well personally. I mean, we spoke on our last video about the lack of confidence we had in the English team. Rob Cross formed 50% of that team. He got turned over in the Players' Championships finals the other week when I thought he should be. He was favourite to win, and he got beat again. The one thing I would say about Cross in the World Cup, I thought that he was hitting big scores, not particularly finishers, but in legs where he was right up against it. In a big 180, he can pull that out of the bag. So watch out for that when his back's against the wall to throw in a 180. But yeah, he's like I say, he's 50-1, and he wouldn't be for me in this quarter, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of people who are casual darts followers will be amazed to see a former world champion of just sort of not long ago out at 50-1. But like you say, it's with good reason. A dire year for Cross. Was reading recently that he said he hasn't practiced much this year after the loss of his grandfather. Obviously, you can't legislate for stuff like that, but he was kind of trying to put a good spin on it, saying, I've played these 3 tournaments in quick succession. I feel like I'm getting my game back. He'll have to get his game back. He's way off where he was. And I just wonder whether it's sometimes with people, it can be a mentality thing. That year that he won it, Cross was coming in. Everyone wanted him to win. He was the underdog, Yeah, he'd never had that experience before. Now he knows what it's like to be the man who's been shot at. People want to beat him because he's Rob Cross, ex-world champion, and he has not dealt with that well so far. So all the best to him. I hope he can get back to where he was, because it was fantastic to watch. That semi-final against Van Gerwen, one of the greatest games ever, no doubt. So let's hope he can get back to where he was, but not anticipating that being anytime soon, really, unfortunately.
Well, I think earlier I said I got it completely wrong. I said there was 2 world champions in this quarter. There's 3 PDC world champions. We've covered 2 of them. Anderson, Cross, Lewis to come, and then there's a BDO 4 or 5-time champion in Glenn Durrant to cover as well. So there's
and another BDO champion in Steve Beaton. Let's not do the Adonis any disservice.
There's 5 world champions, genuine world champions in this quarter alone. I mean, that is the standard that we're playing with nowadays in the darts. But yeah, on to the next game for you, Pie Man.
Yeah, and that is Adam Hunt versus Lisa Ashton. Lisa Ashton, one of 2 female players at this year's World Championships. She'll be joined by Dita Hedman, who'll be making her first appearance at the Ali Pali, but she's a BDO stalwart. She's been around years, old Dita. So yeah, Lisa Ashton, she's had some very credible performances on television. Looks pretty much right at home with the men. What I would say is that she's not quite up to that level of the elite male performers. She's not banging in regular 100 averages. But what she can do, Lisa, is she can compete with these players. As a female player, she will have the crowd on side at Ali Pali. That is a big factor. We saw that work for Fallon Sherrock last year. It could well work for Lisa. I think she's capable of giving Adam Hunt a real scare here. Adam Hunt, not a player that would have been on everyone's radar until recently. He got in at the Grand Slam of Darts, lost his first 2 matches, but then managed to still sneak through the group on leg difference and head-to-head and whatnot.
It was almost by accident.
He might have been the first player to do that ever, to lose his first 2 games and still get through the group. Don't quote me on that, though. But he then conducted himself really well in the knockout stages, played pretty well. I think he gained a lot of admirers for that. But let's be honest, nobody wants to draw Lisa Ashton in the first round. You're on a hiding to nothing. If you win, you're expected to win. And there's a good chance you're going to have a bit of a scare. So he's going to have to play well. He's going to have to deal with the crowd. I would be inclined to have a look at Lisa Ashton. I don't actually have the prices in front of me, but it's probably one I would leave, to be honest, and just enjoy from a viewing perspective.
Yeah, so what the PDC, this is the 3rd year where 2 female players have been guaranteed a spot in the World Championship. So they have female only qualifiers. It's not something that I would particularly agree with, but I can see why they're doing it to broaden the game. But let's have it right. Lisa Ashton is 107 in the PDC order of merit. So on merit and on pure ability, Lisa Ashton would not qualify for this tournament. But as they're trying to broaden it to the female players as well, fair play to them for that. And Lisa Ashton has still had to qualify through female means, but wouldn't have qualified through the usual way where the men would qualify. So as a result, I see it as there's two men out there that should be playing in this tournament on merit that are not. But who can deny that last year with what Fallon did, winning 2 games at Ali Pali, was just sensational. It was all over the news. It was brilliant. So I know there is a balance to be made between guaranteeing participation and and qualifying through through genuine means. But anyway, we'll move on from that. Jamie Hughes is the number 28 seed. He's 300 to 1. And to be honest, whoever qualifies to play Jamie Hughes is going to quite fancy their chances, to be fair. And then you'd certainly be better. Jamie Hughes will be a lot happier than Rob Cross, for example, because Cross is, as we've said, he's got to play Big Dirk or Bradley Brooks. Jamie Hughes has got to play Adam Hunt or Lisa Ashton, that on the face of it are far less players than the other two mentioned. He's 300 to 1. He had a career best showing in the UK Open this year, where he lost a close quarter-final to my man, the Ferret, Johnny Clayton. That looks a good showing on paper. But if you go back and look at that tournament, he had a pretty easy run to that stage, if you ask me, some of the players that he beat. Jamie Hughes is there for the taking, if you ask me.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Not one I would be wild on Jamie Hughes. A capable player on his day, but aren't they all at this level? And he hasn't really shown anything to suggest he's going to go on a big run in what is a difficult quarter. Penultimate round 1 game of this quarter is Steve Beaton, the bronze Adonis, versus Diogo Portela, the Brazilian. Steve Beaton. Is there anyone not a big fan of Steve Beaton? I've never met them. I'm a huge fan of Steve Beaton. I will go out of my way to watch any Steve Beaton match that is televised. Another man who, testament to him for sticking around at this level of the game for so long. This is the 1996 BDO World Champion, still qualifying for the 2021 World Championship. Have a think about that. It's absolute insanity. This is a man who's about to break the world record from Phil Taylor for most consecutive World Championship appearances. And yet we're still, it's not like in golf where they wheel out the old players once a year at the Open just to let them have a round of applause. Steve Beaton will get up there and compete. Steve Beaton will have a real chance of beating Diogo Portela. And let's be honest, not a bad draw for Beaton. Portela, the Brazilian, you may remember him from World Cup appearances from Brazil. Hasn't done an awful lot. He's had one appearance at Ali Pali and lost in his first round game. I would quietly fancy Beaton to get the job done here. It's worth saying that, as to be expected, he's not having as many good days as he has in recent years, Steve. He's having more off days than on days now. But I'm sure he'll be up for the World Champs, and let's hope he can get through.
He can still hit a 180 as well, Beaton. You watch him. But yeah, so Glenn Durrant is the number 12 seed. He's 33 to 1. Really difficult to assess Glenn's chances here. It really, really is. A 3-time BDO world champion. He's made a brilliant transition to the PDC. I would say it's the second best transition from BDO to PDC, only behind Barney, to be honest. Durrant has made 3 major semi-finals in his first year in 2019, which is remarkable, basically, because he was an unranked player. And the ranking system in PDC darts is pretty difficult, and maybe one for another day. But as an unranked player to do that it was brilliant. Then he made a quarterfinal in the Worlds last year, and then he won the Premier League this year, where on his debut season, topped the group stages of 10, and then whittled down to 8 players. But yeah, played all the big boys, still topped the group. It reminds will remind a lot of people of James Wade in his style. Will never say die. Grinder type player, takes out combination finishes for fun, and always going brilliantly for the 50-year-old, to be honest. Before he contracted COVID, just a week after his Premier League win, which is, I think it was the second week of October. Unfortunately for Glenn, the health implications of that have been quite long term, and his form has completely fell off a cliff, unfortunately. He lost 3 out of 3 at the Grand Slam, pretty poor. First round exit in the Players' Championship finals, where he didn't play that badly, but he got I think he averaged like 93. So the signs are bad, and that's why his price has drifted markedly. I mean, if you'd have said after he won the Premier League, I think he beat Aspinall and Snake or in Premier League on finals night. If you'd have said on finals night that Glenn Durrant would be 33 to 1 for the World Championships, I and you would have snapped their hand off. But he's drifted because of the health issues. And like I say, his form has fell off a cliff. If, and it's quite a big if at this stage, if he has fully recovered from COVID, that 33-1 is going to look far, far too big in a month's time. But I'm not willing to risk my money to find out at this stage. So maybe we ought to be watching Glen Durrant. Beaton or Portela in his opening game is a nice settler into the tournament. If Durrant's looking good then, and the price doesn't change too much, it might be worth taking.
Yeah, you're right. Is Glen Durrant a 33-1 chance for the Worlds? No, he's not. He's either much shorter, around the 14 mark, or he's 100-1 no hoper because he's still not recovered from coronavirus. So 33-1 is a compromise price, and I think it'll be enough to put off just about everyone. I certainly couldn't be getting with Glen at that price purely because of, as you say, the form has completely vanished. It's clearly health related. We really wish him well and hope he'll be back to his best soon, because he's been a great addition to the top end of the PDC. He can beat anyone. He's got great self-belief, and he's been a great flag bearer for the BDO. BDO, obviously, everyone knows the problems that they've had in recent years. It's basically fell apart. Shambles this year with Wayne Warren as the world champion, been treated terribly. But what I will say is Glen Durrant at the BDO, he stuck there for probably longer than he had to, arguably longer than he should have. But when he came over, he was very confident that he could compete with the best. And he's done more than compete. He showed that he is among the best. And it would be great if Glen could find his best form for this Worlds. It seems a little bit hopeful rather than likely at this stage, I would say.
But we do both wish him well, it must be said. I actually... at the Blackpool event, what's that called nowadays? The World Match Play in Blackpool, and I was actually lucky enough to sit close to Glen's family, and he went on a run there, and I spoke to his wife, really nice and family, and really proud of him. He's just there. He's not there in it for the money, or like you say, he would have left the BDO much sooner than he did. And he's, like you say, he's got that massive self-belief, and I do really wish him well, Glen, to be honest.
Yeah, let's hope for a good performance from Glen when he comes in, but he'll have to be his best to beat Steve Beaton. And the final first round game of this quarter, and what a game this is, by the way. And the man that must have hated seeing this game come out the most must be Adrian Lewis, who Adam's going to touch on in a moment. But yeah, we've got Damon Hetter versus Danny Buggish. Now, Damon Hetter actually beat Jose de Souza in the first round of the Worlds last year. Yeah. Little did we know how big those two were about to have in terms of a year in 2020. We've got they're probably two of the hottest up and comers in the game. But Hetter, definitely someone that a lot of people will be with for the Worlds. He's a real underdog, gritty player, can average a ton, on the regular. Just seems to be getting better with every TV appearance. TV doesn't faze him at all. Australian, very close to Simon Whitlock. I'm sure he's picked up a lot of helpful experience and tips with Simon. I think a lot of people will be putting up Hetter as an outsider who could genuinely have a good run at this tournament. He could, but if, on the list of players you want to avoid, Danny Buggish definitely one of them. Not somebody that everyone will be aware of. He's an American. He mops up on the American darts circuit. Now, you can take that two ways. Is the American darts circuit poor, or is he very good? I think it's probably a little bit of both. He's a very good player. He did really well on his Ali Pali debut last year. He only narrowly lost to Nathan Aspinall in round 2 after winning his first round game, so he could do it on the big stage. He beat Jeff Smith, the Canadian, to get here. Jeff Smith, very good player, someone who I'm a big fan of. So I think this is a nightmare draw for Hetter, a nightmare draw for Buggish, and the biggest nightmare of all for Adrian Lewis.
Yeah, well, Hetter is 1-5 to beat Buggish. And with what you've said, that might be a little bit on the short side.
I would definitely be with Buggish on the handicaps, I think.
Yeah.
I think Hetter will get through, but Buggish will not get wiped. You can hold me to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hetter's actually one of the players I've got a small stake on because I thought he was too big at the time. I've got a fiver on him at 125-1. He's around the 66-1 mark now, Hetter. And to be fair, I would rather back Hetter, given the draw, and we've been through every single match between us. I would rather back Hetter than the likes of Christoph Ratajski, Dave Chisnell, Rob Cross, And given his draw, I'd rather back him than Dirk van Dijvenbode as well. So, I still think at 66 there's a bit of juice in Hetter's price. He should make it into the second round according to the odds, and that's where he'll play Adrian Lewis. I say all the time, Darts is a better place when Jackpot is on form. It's been a long time since he has been at that top form, to be honest. Back-to-back two-time world champion in 11 and 12 has slid massively down the rankings. We alluded to that last time we spoke, and that's what makes it difficult for players. Like Adrian Lewis is now ranked 21, and that's why he's in a draw with 3 or 4 other previous world champions, and that's the problem that you get with the standard that it is. Brilliant 180 here when he's going. When he's all-round entertainer. We've been present when he's at a 9-darter before at Manchester Arena. Like I say, I think Darts is a better place when Adrian Lewis is on form. And plus, there's the potential. He can always, kick off with fellow players or
it's good value.
Or staff. Yeah, it's good value. So you're either going to get a 9-darter or you just go and shove someone that's half his size. So he's had a mixed year, and you could basically say about that about Adrian Lewis for the last 5 or 6 years. Fell just short in the match play quarter-final against the eventual winner, Van den Berg, who we've already touched on and fancy him to go far. And the same man, Van den Berg, beat him in the Worlds in the last 16 last year as well. So I've already backed Hetter, so I'll be hoping that he can get to round 2 and get past Lewis. But to be fair, like I say, Lewis, I wouldn't particularly mind losing to him if I had to.
Just to add on Adrian Lewis, totally agree with you. I would definitely say he's one of the most naturally talented people to ever pick up a dart. It just looks so easy for him when he's on song. He's had his troubles. We've documented them in previous videos. I felt really sorry for him when this draw came out, because I touched on our previous video about how, because he's not in the top 16 at a lot of events, he gets drawn against tough players. Well, being in the top 32 for the Worlds theoretically should ensure that you get a decent draw, and he pulls the man that nobody wanted, Damon Hetter. So even when he should get a good draw, he gets a bad draw. It's just the way it's going for Eddie this year. A couple of good quarter-final runs at the Winter Series, hints that he might be getting his form back. If he gets into round 3, round 4, he's so dangerous. He might be one that is worth a look at a massive price.
Well, and in that section, a massive price, as you say, Adrian Lewis, 125 to 1. In that section, his toughest game may well be Hetter in the second round. Glenn Durrant, out of form. Jamie Hughes, not particularly good enough at this level. Rob Croft, out of form. And then you're looking into, if Michael Smith does slip up in the top half of this section, Adrian Lewis will fancy his chances against Mensor, Gary Anderson, Devin Peterson. Smith maybe not, but
I think you touched on it when you spoke to me after the draw, and it's a draw that is packed with big names, but they've all got question marks over their head. And if Michael Smith doesn't capitalise on this draw, somebody at a big price will, and they'll get to the quarters or the semis, and you'll think, oh God, they were a massive price. But
yeah, well, and while we're at it, you can bet on player to win the quarter, so i.e. to make the semi-final. Out of this section we've discussed, Michael Smith, obviously 11 to 4 favourite. I think that's too big personally, and much of the reason for that is Devin Peterson at 11 to 2. That's much too short. I've covered that, in his outright price.
What's Adrian Lewis for the quarter, Adam?
So yeah, I'll just run through it. Michael Smith's 11 to 4. Devin Peterson's 11 to 2. Gary Anderson's best price 6 to 1. Durrant 15 to 2. Cross 9s. Hetter is actually a shorter price than Lewis at 11. Mensor's 12. Big Dirk's 12. And Adrian Lewis is in there at 22 to 1. So them odds suggest with Hetter, the unseeded player, being half the price of Lewis, who is the seeded player, that would suggest that Hetter would be favourite to beat Lewis in the second round.
I definitely think he would be priced as a favourite, but I would not be getting involved with Hetter as a favourite in that game.
Yeah, see, we would both like him to win for obvious reasons, having already backed Hetter.
I think Hetter is a good price, but I also think Lewis is a good price. And unfortunately, they are going to meet, and you have to kind of take that on the chin if you're going down that route. But you couldn't look at either of them and say that they weren't value. I think they're both value.
Well, if you couple Hetter and Lewis as one person for the moment, either of those would be confident of beating Glenn Durrant or Steve Beaton, for example, in the third round, and they would be confident of beating Rob Cross or Big Dirk or Jamie Hughes in the fourth round. So they've got a little run there. So one of them's obviously got to come out of there, but it's just difficult picking who that may be. But yeah, that concludes quarter two. For me, it's the most competitive, maybe not the best in terms of quality, but it's the most competitive. There's a lot of conundrums that punters like us have got to work out. Can Lewis roll back the years? Is Glenn Durrant recovered? Rob Cross, has he picked back up form? Has Gary Anderson recovered from his injury? Is Devin Peterson as good as they're telling us he is? And has Michael Smith turned the corner like I think he has? All those questions will be answered when it starts on December the 15th. So that wraps up quarter two of our Darts World Championships preview. Like I say, we'll be doing a video for each of the 4 quarters. The links will be in the description. And thank you very much for watching.
Cheers.